Okay, we are going to be looking at trying to answer some of these questions. And we talked about migration last week, and it's going to kind of come up again this week as it does in the title of our book. We remember that migration is a movement of people from one country or place to another. And I want you guys to think, and maybe we'll put a journal spot for you guys to try to answer these questions. Why do people migrate? Why do they go where they go? And is migration always voluntary? When I say voluntary, I mean, is it a choice that people make, or do they have to do it? This book that we read talks a lot about slavery, or it hints to it because that's what had people move, was one of the causes why people migrated north. And slavery was abolished in the United States when the Civil War ended in 1865, but life was still very difficult for blacks in the South. I'm going to post a Brain Pop video of Jim Crow laws for you guys to watch. Many people lived in poverty, they were not allowed to vote, and they were often threatened and even killed by angry whites. Many public places, such as restrooms and schools, were segregated or separated for whites and blacks. Those challenges forced many blacks to leave the South in the early 20th century. Over the next several decades, more than 1 million blacks moved out of the South. This mass movement was called the Great Migration. One way to learn about the Great Migration is through the paintings of an African-American artist named Jacob Lawrence. His parents were from the South, and he migrated north during World War I. As an adult living in Harlem, he used his art to tell stories of the African Americans who migrated north. He painted a series of 60 paintings called The Great Migration of the Negro. This is a link to the artwork of Lawrence, and I want you guys to think about what each painting tells about the migrant's experience. Think about how the images portray the Great Migration. Look at the composition of the paintings and describe the mood or emotion that each conveys. He uses dark colors and heavy brushstrokes. His black figures look weary but determined. Let's take a look at a couple of them and some of the symbolism behind that. Symbolism is a word used in art, where the artist uses images to express ideas. I've heard the word migration before talked about when animals migrate, and you can see that in this story or in this painting that he has birds presented here as the human figures migrate with him. There's this image of a slave, I'm assuming is a slave, who is hard at work, and he chose to leave this character faceless. You don't see his face, and I think that he chose to do that for a reason. And then looking at the picture of the judge and the look on his face and the color of his skin, I think all symbolize some important things that we need to consider. One of your tasks is going to be looking... Hey, Elliot, hold on. I'm recording, but I'm not going to stop. One of your tasks is going to be taking a map and looking at the routes that slaves took migrating north. Those will be posted in Schoology in the upcoming lessons. But today what I want you guys to do is write a journal entry as if you were an African American migrant migrating from the South State to a northern city in 1900s. I want you guys to think about what would be exciting or scary about this journey, as well as what would be gained or left behind. You can have, you guys can share those in the comments or in Schoology, or you can come up with other strategies so that we can all share in what you guys created. And we will create a spot for you to do that. Great.